What's up, guys? So today I'm going to spend some time talking about something a little different for me. I'm going to talk about cartridges, and we're going to do a comparison of three kind of popular brands. I'm going to give you the technical specs, the cost to run these on a day-to-day basis, and a little bit of info about each one to help you hopefully make a good decision on the cartridges that you want to use. Now, I picked three of what I would consider to be popular brands or good brands, at very least reputable ones. There are so many different types out there. I couldn't test them all realistically, and to be honest, I have to stay with kind of what I feel is really positive for me to tattoo with. So I'm going to break down a few things about each one of them, and I'll start by just letting you know the brands that we picked. So I went with Quadron cartridges, the Cheyenne, of course, cartridges, and T-Tech as well. This is a Canadian company, and they make a good quality cartridge as well, so I threw it into the mix. Okay, so let's talk about Quadron for starters, okay? Packaging is really nice on these. It's very slim. It's actually the smallest of any of the packaging, and if you run a lot of cartridges, you know how important it is to kind of save a little bit of space. So Quadron comes in 108 configurations. They come 22 a box. Tapers from 0.25, 0.30, 0.35. Obviously, you get your bug pins, your long taper, your medium taper, all your round liners and shaders, and even a power liner as well, which emulates the Cheyenne cartridge. These have what I call a semi-membrane. So it doesn't have a true membrane like some other cartridges, but it has a really tight fit so that you're not really allowing any material to come up and onto the plunger and therefore getting into your machine, which is a problem if you've ever used some kind of cheaper quality cartridges. So the other things about this machine is a single piece construction, so it's all one piece, and if you open up the cartridge just like that, you can see nothing will break apart. Everything's nice and solid. Well made, well constructed. So cost on these in Canadian dollars, $29 to $36 Canadian, depending on the configuration that you're using. So it works out to $1.45 to $1.80 per cartridge. Okay, so not that much. But again, if you're using upwards of 4 or 5, 6 cartridges per, an expensive cartridge will start to add up, and it tears out of your bottom line, and God knows we don't need that nowadays. Okay, so that's the Quadron technical specs. Next up, Cheyenne. So everybody knows the Cheyenne. These are 56 configurations. They only come 10 to a box. The nice thing about these ones is they have a shelf life up to 5 years, which is great. And they also have a full true membrane. So you're not getting any risk of anything coming up into the top half of the cartridge. You're not getting anything coming up into your machine, so no risk there. You have your soft edge, you have your power liners, you have all the configurations that you would want except an 11 mag. You cannot get 11 mag in curved, straight, bug pin, regular taper. No way. For whatever reason, Cheyenne has decided to omit this from their lineup, and they have forever. And at least if you can get it in other countries, disregard everything I just said. But in Canada and from every company that I've ever tried to order from, Cheyenne does not make an 11 mag, which for a lot of people, who cares, right? But for somebody like me who used an 11 mag every day before switching to Cheyennes, it was a huge adjustment. So if that's something that you may consider as well. So these are also a 2-piece construction, okay? So there's your cartridge. It's actually the easiest one to take apart of any of the cartridges that I've ever tested, which is nice. And I don't mean the actual cartridge, I mean the blister pack. It's a minor thing, but with Quadron and T-Tech and any of the other cartridges I've ever tried, it's actually a really big pain in the ass to kind of liberate them from the blister packs. So there's your cartridge. Again, these are well made, they're well constructed, they're a nice solid cartridge, nothing feels cheap, nothing is shaky or rattly, but if you easily just pull the whole thing will come apart, okay? Now, while I'm working, if I'm working color, especially if I'm working color, I'm obviously dabbing the end of my needle after I'm rinsing, and, this ends up being a fiddly little thing when it pops off in the middle of your tattoo and you're looking at your customer going, yeah, it's okay, don't worry. This happens all the time. It's okay. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. So I do have an issue with that. I always have had an issue with that. I think a lot of people do. But, it is what it is. Cheyenne makes a really good quality needle. I wish they had a one-piece construction. They don't. And then the other thing to consider if you're moving to these cartridges is cost. So these ones are the most expensive of them. They are 27 to 33 Canadian dollars per box. And in a box, there are only 10 cartridges. So that works out to about $2.70 to $3.30 per cartridge. So again, if you're running 6 cartridges in a day, that's an amount, right? So there we go. That's the Cheyenne. Up next, T-Tech. Okay, so T-Tech's packaging is bare bones, just plain white. Your cartridge is in there. Now, these come in 60 different configurations. They come 22 a box. Absolutely no membrane. One-piece construction. These ones fit really well into a machine for a lower cost cartridge. They have about a 2-year shelf life, 12 and 10 taper. So I believe that's equivalent to 30 and 0.30 and 0.35 tapers. There's an absolute ton of info on these on the T-Tech website and what they call the white paper. It's available for download. And T-Tech, out of all these other companies, or any cartridge company that I've looked into, they actually give the most information about the process of making these, the sterilization process, the quality of materials that are going in. All that kind of information is on their website and available there. So T-Tech absolutely should be commended for that. These are also the cheapest cartridges in the mix. So they run, again, 22 a box, $22 to $34.10 Canadian dollars per box. And that works out to $1 to about $1.70 per cartridge. So that brings your cost down considerably. So T-Tech, another good viable option. Obviously, all these brands are EO sterile. All of them have their pros and cons. Let's talk about which ones I like, which ones I reach for every day, and why I do that. Okay, so every single day when I'm starting my tattoos, when I'm picking out all my stuff, I'm reaching for Quadrant every day. The reason why is I find these needles to be the best quality constructed. I find them to be the cheapest in terms of, the mix between getting a really well-made cartridge and getting one that I feel I can perform really well with in a package that isn't going to cost me, $3.30 per cartridge, which is a lot of money when you're breaking it down every day over and over. And I mean, in our shop, we have 4 different artists that are using cartridges every day, and if each one of those is drawing 6 cartridges out of a box every day, each one of their setups is an extra, $70, $80 a day in some cases if they're using a more higher price cartridge. So that's something to consider. I like these ones because I feel like I tattoo better with them. The needles are very precise. The gaps between the stacks, so if I'm using a mag, between the bottom and the top stack is really nice and tight. It'd be comparable to a lot of people use Mithra. Different needles have different kind of gap points in them, and I find Quadrant to be absolutely perfect for me. I always found Cheyenne to be a little sloppy height-wise, and I find T-Tech to be very sloppy. I feel like this cartridge is like, the Ferrari of cartridges for me. It just performs beautifully every single day. It's painfully consistent. They come out of the box exactly the same every single time. My only beef with it, I wish it had a full membrane. because that's important, and depending on your health inspector, they may really want you to have one. And I wish that the packaging was a little bit easier to take the cartridges apart. The serrations between, it's a huge pain. I mean, you're almost cutting them off, to get them out efficiently. That's literally my only gripes, and I think those things are small. I've never had an incident where, I've noticed any ink or water or anything else, even after rinsing a cartridge. I've never had any issue with them. Okay. So that's the one I'm using. Let's talk about the ones I'm not. Cheyenne. I used these cartridges for a really long time. I love the membrane. I think they're well made. They are also very, very consistent. I don't like that the tip breaks off of them. It drives me bonkers, especially if you're trying to finesse the tip back on and you end up barbing your needle on the way. You just threw away $3.30 in some cases. Cost, the fact that you're reordering constantly because they're 10 to a pack. It's also the biggest box that's available as far as what I've tested. So it takes up more space. And again, I run on average maybe 30 configurations in my room. So you got to have room for 30 boxes in your room if you want to be using a whole bunch of different configurations. So yeah, cost is high. The membrane is really nice. The tips breaking off is not so nice. And that's about it. I go to these as kind of, if I run out of Quadrant cartridges nowadays, I'll switch over and use a Cheyenne. Okay, lastly, sorry this video is getting a little long, but I'm trying to cover as much information as I can for everyone. Lastly, the T-Tech. So this is complete personal opinion again. There are a lot of people using all these cartridges with great success and doing beautiful tattoos. T-Tech is no exception to that. They're a Canadian company. I wish I could support them a little bit more, but I've never picked up a T-Tech needle that I liked using. They all feel clunky to me. The tapers don't feel right. They don't feel consistent. I don't feel like I have as much control with a T-Tech needle as I do with a Quadrant or even a Cheyenne. I like the one-piece design. The fact that it has absolutely no membrane is a problem to me. There is a very visible clear gap. It's going to be tough to catch on the video here. Yeah, that was pointless. There's a very clear visible gap in the top of it. And now, after using these for a while, I realized that when I was popping them out of my machine, I was starting to see ink and water bleed up. It's a white cartridge. It's painfully visible when anything comes up that way. And so that means that there is potential for transfer happening, okay? So this going up into your machine, if you're using a cartridge machine like a pen style or even a traditional kind of cartridge grip, if it's not disposable, using T-Techs, you are putting your customer at risk. I don't care what anybody says. You can argue that point in the comments if you want, but if liquid is going up into your machine and you're not cleaning it or throwing it back out and it's coming down into your next customer, hepatitis can live for 36 hours on a hard surface, and that's no exception. So it's really clear that this is not the safest cartridge on the market. Now, all that said, I'm basically talking out of my ass because no one's ever gotten sick as far as I know. There's no cases of real infection traced back to T-Tech, and there's certainly no cases of any infectious diseases being traced back to using a cartridge like this. So it's more all speculation. Could it happen? Of course it could happen. And that's my main reason for not wanting to use this cartridge on a day-to-day basis. We have them in the shop in case of kind of emergency, if we were to run out or something. They have a good shelf life, so it's nice to keep them around. But other than that, not my personal choice for using. They're the cheapest of all the cartridges, and it absolutely shows that they're the cheapest of all the cartridges. So that's my opinion. So after all that, again, I want to say, completely my opinion, all these three cartridges are doing wonderful things in other people's hands. If you're interested in what I'm doing with the cartridges, you can check out my work on Instagram, RequiemTattoo_Anthony. Like and subscribe. Comment if you have any questions. If I've left anything out, please feel free to let me know so I can address it. This is a completely unsponsored review. I'm only giving kind of my feeling on these cartridges and what does the best job for me. So yours may be completely different, your style may be completely different, but I hope you will at least find some kind of information in here that's useful for you. As always, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, follow me on Instagram. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.